Good evening and a very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to It's All Graphic. I would like to start off with thanking Studio Smack for using their amazing videos that you saw when you entered the room. So, It's All Graphic, logo by logo, a special edition. This evening is a joint venture by Pakhuis de Zwijger and the Wim Crouwel Institute. And the Wim Crouwel Institute's aim is to have design heritage made accessible for future generations. And this edition, the logo by logo edition, is a special collaboration because we collaborated with Dutch Design Daily and especially with Roel Stavorinus and Erik. So, tonight we will address that the fields of graphic design and the visual design sector are changing rapidly, especially due to technological development. In the past, a designer would create a visual identity and record all its applications in a visual identity manual. And that guide would be implemented with all means of communication, which, to a certain extent at least, ensure the control of how your brand and your message has been used. Currently, however, it has become more and more difficult to ensure the quality of visual identity. Tonight we will present 3 cases dealing with brand or visual identity, and we'll close the evening off with a column by Claire Parker. All the presenters will also be taking part in a panel to discuss what the future is of visual identities. So if you have any questions, the panel is the moment to ask them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker to you all. He's a writer and a specialist on brand identities and design and communication strategies. He's a publicist and the writer of Logo by Logo, the book on which we based this evening actually. And he's here tonight to talk about an introduction to the world of logos and brand identities. Please give a warm hand to Roel Stavorinus. Welcome.
See if this works. Yes, it works. All right, logo by logo. Ever since I was a very small child, I've always been very fascinated about logos. And see where I can see my slides here. And not only logos, but also other kinds of symbols that symbolize identity, like coats of arms, Japanese mons, which are fantastic, and flags. And of course, logos. And I particularly like the logos that are very simple, and I'm highly fascinated by the fact that you can take a very generic shape, like a square or a circle, and by bringing it in a different context, or giving a different shape, or different elements, adding to it, or add different colors, you can change entirely what it stands for, what it expresses. So even generic shapes you can make ownable. I publish a lot about logos, and every time again when I start thinking about a logo, sometimes I get the question, there's a change of logo, there's a new logo, a logo is implemented, would you like to react on it? And I can't help doubting about that question. Should I do it? Isn't this a topic which is not very interesting? That's also the remarks that you get from not designers. What are you bothering yourself about? It's insignificant. So the question that I have to ask myself every time again is this logo important? Is this subject of logos important? And I think it is. Today, exactly 98 years ago, in 1920, the Republic of Danzig was established. And this was the symbol that was connected to that, or made that clear. Before that, this symbol said it was West Prussia. And in 1939, it was the state of Danzig was taken over by Nazi Germany. Probably one of the best logos ever designed. And still, now presenting it to you, it feels very awkward. And because there's a whole lot of stories behind it, there's a lot of feelings behind it. And it's very difficult to show to you. I bought a book a couple of weeks ago about the identity of the Third Reich, and I don't even dare to sit in it with to sit in the train with it. And that's what symbols do. After the no, I have to say now it belongs to Poland. So Danzig is now part of Poland, and it's interesting because this red and white and these colors symbolize Poland, but it also symbolizes Ajax, and these supporters are very connected to the identity and also the logo of Ajax so much that they want to go into the streets and fight for the old logo. A couple of years ago, I was stunned by this image that expresses very clearly that there is no difference anymore between, on the one hand, people working for a company and the brand that they carry and the faith that they go through in difficult times. And they basically say, we are this company, we are together, we are united, we face the same problems. And that's symbolized by the color, by the logo, and by typefaces. I'm quite sure that for the people working in these companies, Delhaize and Ahold, these logos represent something that also gives them certain feelings. Either they're very happy or they're very sad. They see it very positive towards the future, or they say, well, this is not my company anymore. So to them it's important. When BP promised the world by changing their logo, we're going to be a very sustainable organization and take our responsibility. And the disaster in the Mexican Gulf happened. People took them upon their promise and reacted very fiercely, also taking their own symbolism against them. Broken promise. And sometimes a logo is very unimportant, maybe, but still it's important for this specific entrepreneurs or for the specific neighborhood or for the specific context. So I think logos are very important because they sort of connect you to a story, draw you into the story, and everything that it represents, the feelings, the heritage, your own experiences, etc. So for me, being a design strategist, working 15 years independently, thinking about how can I celebrate that, it was quite logical to do something with logos. So I asked all the graphic designers that I know, what's your favorite logo that you designed yourself? And what's your favorite logo from another designer? Very simple concept, a spread of pages. On the one page is the logo, explanation in 100 words. Other page, the logo from a different designer, explanation in 100 words. And I was a little bit afraid that I would end up with 50 pages of FedEx logos, or IBM. And there are a few doubles, which I kept in, FedEx, NS, Stedelijk, and this beautiful logo, the wool mark, which I didn't expect it. And I was a little bit afraid, I'm sorry, Klaas, I'm not sure if you're here, that the book would be filled with the more ugly remnants of logoism. But I am very happy that this made the book, because his explanation, what he says about it, this is my first logo from '95. So much is wrong with it. I don't even know where to start. It combines what's fashionable in that period of time with the preoccupations of a student in graphic design. So that his favorite logo, by the way, is the Stedelijk Museum logo. So that combination of these logos together with this explanation make it worthwhile and give it depth. So I'm very happy with the end result. It delivers fantastic combinations. This one by Martin Piper. The first one, the first entrant. Sven Gerard, Hoax. Menno Waardhuizen, the peace symbol. Michelle. But it also raised a lot of questions, Dirk-Jan. Hi. Because she said, well, this is a logo, Bunda, which I want to present, but it's actually not meant for print work. So how will this end up in a book? I'm a little bit worried about that. Or these logos by Irene, that said, well, yeah, we really want to present this Nordkin logo, but it's generated by geographical data. And there's not one logo, but there's 30 million. So I can't just pick one. Or this logo by Gru, they say, well, yeah, the basic F is interesting, but actually it's not what this symbol is, it's what you do with it. Or this combination of logos, it's not one logo, but it's a whole system of logos. And Danny Crave said, yeah, well, I'm very proud of what I did for Extrapolitan, but it's a system of logos and identities that people working in tourism can use throughout the world. So I want to show New York, and I want to show London, and I want to show Paris. Otherwise, what do I show? It's not about the logo in itself. Or Bob van Dijk, who said, well, yeah, I want to show Dropbox, but I don't think that it should be about the logo. It's about the whole visual identity, so I also want to show that. Or Dennis, who said, well, I've got not one favorite, but I like all paper wrappers for candy. Also the question, what is a logo? This logo by Ton Homburg that he found, it's a little dog, as you can clearly see. Or these logos by Barry, the tag from Kilroy. Or this logo by Pepijn, the hand of Alan Fletcher that came from a poster. So this whole exercise raised three questions. One question is, what's a good logo? And that was the question that every designer had to face for himself. The second one is, what's the importance of the logo still? Is it still important? And where does it go with logo design? Where is it heading? To start with the latter, and a big thanks to Kat Dunbar for lending his pictures. Is there still room for this very thoroughly thought through identities with these huge manuals where everything is thought about? And it takes time and it takes a lot of money. And will we be facing a future in which logos are generated by algorithms like in this project from Puerto Rico? Or will the future of logo design be in movement and with other senses like sound? Or will we see more dynamic identities like this one from Silo about Boerhaven? And what will the role of designers be? Will digital designers be more in the lead than graphic designers or brand designers or communication designers? Or will logos play a very important role in interaction and inviting people to actually work with it and play with it and make it alive? And that's a nice bridge to the importance of the logo. I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago about the identity of the NS. And I looked into the history of NS material. And of course, you can find a lot from the last 10 years because, well, that's all been digitalized. And the period before is a little bit more difficult. And what I see is one big mess if you consider it from a visual identity point of view. There's just one thing that holds it all together, and that's the logo, or actually two things, the logo and the colors. And I was actually quite stunned to find out that this was maybe one of the first dynamic identities. I'm not sure when this was published, probably somewhere in the 70s. But here you can see the importance of a very strong symbol, because if it's strong enough, you can do whatever you like with it. And until, I think, maybe a couple of months ago, I thought, well, this is things from my own experience and my own opinion about what I think about logo design, and is there actually real evidence? And there is. I went to Neiman Marketing Day in June, and there was Kantar Millward Brown presenting. It is a research company, and they presented their research on brand assets. So not only logos, but also form language, typefaces, color, can be a payoff, etc. And they say, well, the logo and shapes and patterns are the most important brand assets for a brand. So please let them be and don't touch them too much. Let them work for you and be consistent in that. And there's also research from Bo van Grinsven that says, well, it's very important to stay consistent and not to really touch it, but you should touch it a little bit because that's good for people's minds. Because if you tweak logos a little bit now and then, that keeps the associations in your brain fresh. And that makes it that you and freshen and renew your associations, memories, experiences with the brand again and again. So that's actually a smart thing to do. And there's this fantastic book which I would recommend to you all, which has been published a couple of months ago by Jenny Romaniuk. And she says also the same, please keep your hands off logos unless you have got a very good analysis of why you should change it. And it brings us to the next question. So this is the importance of the logo. But then, what should a good logo be? What is a good logo? And everyone has to answer that question for himself. That's also personal. But there's also evidence, or there's actually research been after that question. And again, Cantor Milward Brown says a good brand asset is clear, it's consistent, and it should emphasize your message. Personally, for me, the best logo, because that's not in the book, is the logo we did for Pictorite. And that's not because it's very beautiful, because I think it's quite ugly. Sorry, Pepijn. But when I first spoke to Vincent is the managing director of Pictorite, and I've asked him, what's your business like? What do you do? And he came with a very complex answer, which was about collective rights and legal stuff, and it was very difficult to comprehend what it was about. And Design Police came up with this concept of this image frame, which you will all know if you work with InDesign, or in the past with Quark Express. And you know that this image frame you have to fill with an image explicitly. You have to think about it. It's not something that happens automatically. And because that was the basis of the logo, it made Vincent say, Pictorite, it's quite easy. The use of image is not natural. You have to think about it. So you have to ask permission from the creator. So this logo helped him to bring a very complex story into a very well understandable message. And I think that is what a good logo should do, to draw you into the story of the brand, of the project, of the country, and help you tell the story. What the future of logos is, I don't know really. I've got my thoughts. I'm very interested in what you think. So I see today as a start of a conversation. And I would like to start that conversation with you. And the first thing that we can do is, this is Logo Book 1. I already started Logo Book 2. If you want to be part of Logo Book 2, please send me an email. And I'll be very curious about what your contribution will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erik. I'm sorry, I've got a question for you, because you already touched on that subject a little bit, and there's opportunity later maybe to talk a little bit longer. But you said logos are a system. Could you elaborate on that? What do you mean with logos are a system? Because they are, you know, the identity, they define the identity, but how does it work as a system?
How does it work as a system? Well, I think that's quite a difficult question, actually. I'm not sure whether every logo is part of a system. Sometimes it's not. It's just a logo placed on certain means of communication. Mm-hmm. But I think it becomes interesting when you make an analysis of touch points where clients, people, stakeholders meet your organization or your story or your brand. And that you think about what does that mean for the representation of the brand. So how should I show the brand in such a way that you create a cue that draws people into that story. And to do that, you can use logo systems.
And what are logo systems exactly? Or not exactly?
Well, for me, it's actually basically a set of rules on how you want to use the logo in such a way that it helps you connect to the brand.
And it doesn't always have to be a dynamic logo that should adapt or change with every situation.
I think the dynamic logo is a little bit overrated in a way. I think a dynamic logo is very interesting because you can do a lot with computers nowadays. So it's from a designer's perspective, it's very easy to go that way. Yeah. But for an organization's perspective or a brand perspective, it's not always the best way to go, because it in my opinion, it works really well if you can communicate extensively. So if you've got the budgets to create a lot of moments where people are in contact with your brand or your message.
Right.
If not, stick to something very simple, like NS or KLM, and use it very consistently.
Right. Thank you so much. Roel Stavorinus. Our next speaker is Erik de Haas, and he's the founder of Hey de Haas. And together with Erik Schouwerman and Elske van der Putten, they have created the new identity of the city of Eindhoven. And he will present the case coming to the identity of Eindhoven. And if I'm not mistaken, that is a dynamic logo. So let's see what he has to say about that. Please give a warm welcome to Erik de Haas. Welcome.
Let's start with a small correction. We actually didn't design the logo as a studio. I will explain that later. This is actually my cheat sheet. Let's start with hi. Erik, that's me, Erik de Haas. And Roel asked me to tell you a little bit about the visual identity of Eindhoven. Which is quite an interesting process because we started that 6 years ago, but we started it as sort of a collaborative identity. But in the end, it's not really a collaborative. Yeah, it is a collaborative identity, but we were sort of doubting if it's more like a co-created identity. But then again, co-created is also like this iffy term. So we were thinking maybe it is a dynamic identity because the process was really dynamic. But the logo itself, yeah, you could call it dynamic. But in the end, we settled for, but I only did that today. I called it a visual mentality. But first, let me introduce our studio. I'm on the left on the horse. Erik Schouwerman is on the right on the horse, and the power lifter underneath the horse is Elske. I will shortly introduce our studio. We work on a really diverse range of design projects. And as you can see here, it can range from publication design. We build little machines. We do identity and campaigns, mostly cultural work. And we also make sort of not dynamic identities, but other identities which are not dynamic for other clients. And we do websites. But we also do like huge installation work. So this is a kinetic installation which is now on show at Kunsthal. So you should definitely go and see it for yourself if you're in the neighborhood of Amersfoort. It's a huge track where 50-cent coin, the installation is called 50-50, will run over like 100 meters of acrylic track. That's not an identity. Besides that, we also do, we make videos, more installation work, chain reaction work, big installations for events, exhibition design, publication design. We do the campaigns for het Zuidelijk Toneel, and we organize events at our own studio, which is called The Old In and Out. It's we always call it Evening with Friends. So the Eindhoven project was quite amazing because actually it started 6 years ago and it was initiated by Eindhoven 365, which is the city marketing organization. But before I can tell you about the identity of Eindhoven, you have to know something about Eindhoven. So I will briefly give you a context of Eindhoven. Most people know Eindhoven back in the days from the huge electronics company Philips, or either DAF trucks, or the soccer team PSV. And that sort of determined what sort of city Eindhoven is. It's a really industrial city. In Dutch they say, how do you call it? Hard werken and, hard werken, hard labor. But during the 90s, a lot of stuff changed. Philips left. They moved their head office to Amsterdam. It's around the corner here. Duff Trucks almost went bankrupt. And the soccer team, well, they kept playing, but it wasn't like the end of the 80s. So Eindhoven was definitely in sort of going in a direction, but mainly in the wrong direction. So this is a sort of infographic I made, and from nice and vibrant, it went to super boring and ugly. These are some articles I found about how people thought about Eindhoven in 1997. It's the most boring place. In 2000, it's so boring, somebody even made a movie about it. And in 2004, it was called not only boring, but also the most ugliest city. And actually, in 2005, I moved back to Eindhoven from Amsterdam. So I was a bit doubtful about that decision. But then things changed. And that's quite interesting, because when I came back to Eindhoven, there was a lot of abandoned space where obviously designers could find studio space. But also some spin-offs of Philips started to grow enormously. Maybe you know it, ASML. They do surgery on machines, I think, sort of. Dutch Design Week became a huge event, and in case the football team PSV, well, if they won't make it, we have sort of a backup team. We organized the RoboCup. So that's sort of the upside. Eindhoven was sort of getting back on track, and then the marketing organization came, and they actually talked with Remco van der Kraats. He is the owner of EDAV, another design company. And they were sort of, well, figuring out what to do with identity. And I think it was Remco who said, like, it would be really a shame if you would take this interesting job and take it to this big agency somewhere out of Eindhoven, while we have this talented designers here in the city. And they started thinking about it, and they organized a first meeting where they invited 9 local designers from different disciplines to present their vision on the identity of Eindhoven. It was really like a fun day. Everybody was presenting their ideas about the future and Eindhoven and what it should look like. And it was really a nice bottom-up event. And out of this day, the virtual design agency came to life. And the virtual design agency was sort of a name that just became like a real name. But the idea behind it was that the identity of Eindhoven would not be designed by one agency, but by a collective of a lot of agencies, preferably all based in Eindhoven or around Eindhoven, just to have like short lines. So after this day of presentations, there was a core team. They settled for a core team who would sort of start with the basic identity. And that was Remco van der Kraats, me, and Mark Koppe. He's from Scherpontwerp. And you could say this was sort of the briefing, vaguely. Yeah, it also felt like that way, like, okay, you know what to do, good luck. But it was a really big challenge. So we called it the struggle. Or can you read the brief again? And we often redefined the brief ourselves. So we had, and I must say I have to sort of skip through this quickly because it was a process for 1 year. So there's so many details to talk about, but I have to make some choices, and I decided to mainly talk about the process. We came at our studios every 2 weeks, and we made we did a lot of research about what this identity should be, and we felt sort of also responsible for doing the right thing for your city. So we sketched and sketched, but it was also really, really weird because actually you're working together with people you would obviously pitch against if you would opt for this assignment. So in the beginning, it was kind of also really nice to get to know each other on another level. For instance, like if you would compare it with music preferences, Remco is more into hip-hop, Mark is more into rock, and I like rock, hip-hop, but I also like audiobooks, for instance. So there was a really big sort of joint factor. But after a lot of sketching, really a lot of sketching, and also a lot of discussion with clients, which I must say is really amazing that they went into this process, because it's really difficult to have like 3 companies where you have to make agreements with instead of one. And we were also kind of really hardcore in how we wanted to work. So thank you again. We decided to keep it really, really simple. We wanted to make a logo. We wanted to make a typeface with a voice, a tone of voice. And we wanted to have an idea of how imagery would be used and would look like. And point 4 is we wanted to also sort of design more like a mentality instead of rules. So what we did is we designed a logo. There's a whole story behind it, but basically it comes down to that we wanted to translate or visualize the sort of the energy, the vibrant energy of the city, which has always been visible in the industry, but also in the mentality. So this is the logo. Maybe you know it. We also decided to develop a voice, typeface. And we, during the whole process, we constantly had to sort of shift between sort of your own graphic preferences and the group preferences. So in a way, it's always about aesthetics. You like something or you don't like it. But this made it shift aside of that. So this was kind of interesting because we wanted to make a typeface that we could finish later, so that it sort of looked like it wasn't finished yet. And we were inspired by a piece of tape we saw on the wall somewhere at Strijpes. And we decided to make a typeface out of it. But since we're not type designers, we had to look in a network in Eindhoven to find a typographer, which is kind of hard, because I think they all live in The Hague. But fortunately, we found out that Pieter van Rosmalen from Bold Monday, he lives in Eindhoven. So that we could ask him, because now it was legal. He was in Eindhoven, and he also did the typeface for Rijksmuseum. So he was a bit sort of he liked it immediately to work with us on this typeface. But he also said like, okay, but it's kind of funny typeface. I don't know. But in the end, we said, yeah, but we're going to finish it next year. We can add to it each year. That was the intention. So we made this typeface, and we developed a tone of voice, and we wanted it to be friendly, but also like a little bit cheeky, and but mostly also really clear and direct. So, for instance, on the left side, it's what you see if you enter Eindhoven. It's a little sign alongside of the road, and it says "Goed dat je er bent." It's good you're here, and it's sort of a perfect fit with Eindhoven. It's like straight. So we're happy to see you, but let's get to business or something. And the other one is the city card. You can throw away your trash and get discounts and that sort of stuff. And it's called Dit is Pas Eindhoven because of the word pas. It's called it's card in English. Oh, wrong button. And then we made a really simple idea about imagery. We wanted to stop using sort of icons, city icons, as identity imagery, but it all has to be really vibrant. It has to show what the city is really about pop-up spheres, about engaging young kids, about a vibrant design culture. So we made a sort of guidelines for that, and we invited a lot of local photographers to invite them to shoot imagery that way. So we started building on an image bank. And the last one, maybe the most important one, we thought about giving the logo actually to the citizens. It always sounds like this cheesy idea, but we specifically thought it was really nice to hand over the control and not to make big piles with rules and stuff. So, and we said, like, it's to the marketing organization, if you're going to do stuff, do it with as many different designers from the city. So everybody can have their share or share their specialism. This is, by the way, the short version. Then the identity got launched, and it was in June, I think, 2013. And actually, we only made sort of this, the stuff I just showed you. There was a lot of ideas about campaigns and that sort of stuff, but we decided to do the launch really simple as this. So it was a poster alongside the road, and yeah, I think it's sort of a typical Eindhoven thing, like, okay, here it is. Have fun. The first days, it was really hard, because you always get these reactions. You know, something is new. You have people saying, "Oh, it looks like my 6-year-old daughter can do. Oh, how much? You know." So we had the same thing, but then something funny happened. People became really critical. They said, like, "Yeah, but do you know what a good logo looks like?" And then started explaining to me, like, what a good logo should be. And mostly they referenced this logo. And then I was like, yeah, but it's like, I don't know, 70 years old. So the logo from Eindhoven is like 2 weeks. I don't know. And then a funny thing happened, because after a year, I saw a lot of people who I spoke to who were sort of like, yeah, the Eindhoven logo isn't going to work. It doesn't have this you know, this thing. And then all of them wore these caps. So actually, after 5 years, I sort of went out of the process. I didn't do that much stuff with the identity again, but that was also the point that it got transferred to the gemeente. I forgot to tell you about something, because along the process, we decided to make the logo one logo for the whole city. So not a logo for a city marketing organization, but it's also for the local government, which was a special... well, it had some difficulties, because people have to see if something is from the local government or if it's marketing. But in the end, I sort of stepped down a little bit and saw what happened. And it was really fun to see what people started doing with it. So this is mostly work from other designers. And you see that people started to, well, obviously it got incorporated, but people made dynamic logos out of it. People started integrating it into campaigns. This was a good showcase for how photography should work, projecting it on buildings. So it was really fun. Well, at first I was sort of like, but it was really fun after a while to see all this stuff happening. And there's actually also a video here, I think. This is, for instance, from EDAV movie, and the possibilities and the stuff people are doing with this logo is really, really amazing, I think. So this is a whole series. It's called Share the Vibe. The Vibe is sort of became the nickname for the logo, and it's a series of people doing stuff with this identity. And the biggest sort of proof if a logo is good, I think, for now, because there's a panel discussion later, so maybe I come back to that, is that you see people like really sort of engaging with it. And I saw a lot of tattoos, which is kind of weird to see your logo on skin. But also the local brewery, for instance, because we gave it away, the logo, they immediately started using it. They were one of the first to translate the logo into this campaign, which I thought was really brilliant. So that's it, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Erik de Haas. For you as well, because you mentioned it briefly, but what you did was make one version of the logo in red for the local government. So whenever
Yes.
there's official mails or messages from the local government, it's only allowed by them to use the red logo and the word Eindhoven, right?
Yes. Yeah. I can show you maybe quickly.
Yeah.
It's the top left one is that's the local government logo.
But by giving away control, by giving it away to everybody else to adapt it in their own way, what was the initial purpose of it?
I think it sort of fitted the process of where we really investigated this sort of mentality of Eindhoven, and we know that it's a really hands-on culture, and we thought like the fastest way to adaptation is to give it away and let people do stuff with it.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I can imagine that you're quite happy with it. This wasn't the result that you expected it to be?
No.
Because especially when it wasn't received very warmly in the beginning.
Yeah, the fun thing is that that's always sort of crushing your ego if that happens. But if you work on it for like a year, you're also sort of you don't know anymore. So. And the fun thing is that you do it together with 2 other agencies. So it's really something that's in the middle.
Yeah.
It's not like one style of agency that sort of became dominant.
And working with 3 agencies on the same concept, on the same logo, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
What was the point that you had, that you reached a breaking point? At what certain point do you think, okay, this is not going to happen?
To be really honest, there were some moments, but it was actually never. Between designers. We always figured it out, but it was more the intensity of the process sometimes. Like,
what do you mean by that?
Getting feedback, and everybody's doing this sort of way of working for the first time. So also a client has to really adapt to communicating with all 3 sort of parties, and that's really hard, I think, also for a client side.
Will you ever work with 2 other agencies again?
Yes, I think so.
Okay,
yeah.
Very good.
But not on the identity of Eindhoven.
Because it's already done.
It's done.
Thank you so much, Erik de Haas. Our next speaker for tonight is Henk Haaima, and he's an art director and team lead concept and design of Mirabeau. And he will present the case of the online brand identity of Transavia. Please give a warm hand to Henk Haaima.
Oh, it's already there. Cool. I'm Henk. I always start with a personal introduction. I'm creative director at Mirabeau. Mirabeau is a digital agency, and that means that we have 2 units. That is a design unit, and we also have a development unit. So it's really a company where aesthetics or design and technology meet. I've studied typography, and I've studied fine arts. That's a long time ago. And I started my career as an artist, as a painter. But somewhere in the early 90s, I fell in love with the internet and became a designer. And yeah, maybe something to tell about my personal life. I live like an urban nomad. Urban nomadism, as you know, or as you might know, refers to a lifestyle for creatives to work and live anywhere and nowhere. I think our trend watcher Lee Edelkoort coined this term, this phenomenon. And well, I really like to live like an urban nomad. And thanks to the digital revolution, but also thanks to low costs like Ryanair, EasyJet, but also our own Transavia. I'm going to present Transavia today, and I think it's probably one of my coolest projects in the past 5 years. And first I want to show you a short video clip, because I want to provide you with some context. So I want to show the designs. It has some sound to it, so be prepared. There it is. So I'm a frequent low-cost flyer. I really love it. And well, it's 1 week ago that I flew to Lisbon with Transavia. And it's really a cool airline, because what I like and what really stands out is the enthusiastic and positive approach of the cabin crew. And when we started this project, that is a few years ago, we had to identify the core value of the organization culture. And we defined it as a principle, as a tagline: it's a pleasure. In other words, it means something like flying is fun, or flying should be fun. And we took this as a guiding principle for all communications. And we really wanted to make this tangible. I will show you an example. And that is usually a quite boring page. This is a step in the booking flow. It's the page where you select your seat. And we have created a real rich experience. You can see the flying plane, and you can even see the animating clouds in the background. And there's even the coastline of the destination you are flying to. So this is really the embodiment of it's a pleasure, of flying is fun. So this is some user feedback collected by Usabilla. And of course, I'm very biased, but I like this user feedback. The website makes me really happy. It's really lifelike, makes me want to go on holiday. Well, this is exactly what we wanted to accomplish. However, I mean, a rich experience with animating clouds and with a coastline and everything is not always funny. Imagine that the battery level is quite low, below 20%, for example. You are not interested in a rich experience because you still want to book your flight. So for this simple reason, we wrote a simple line of code just to detect the battery level. And if it's low, you will get a poor presentation of the seat map. So this sounds really like a funny detail and a minor detail. I mean, what is interesting about this single line of code to detect the battery level? Well, it represents our design philosophy. It means actually that for us, the user and the context, and that can be a device, that can be a battery level, should be reflected in the design. These are some other interface designs we have created. And I'm not really going to present something about the logo tonight, but I remember one thing. When we started the project, I've briefed my design team, 3 designers, and on this very first day, we start the exploration. I told them something like, You are completely free. I mean, just start to explore and create something nice. But the only thing, the only requirement, the only thing I don't want is the logo in the upper left corner, because it's always there. We have to break with that convention. Position it in a more dynamic way. What they actually did is, well, you can see it on the homepage. The logo is there, quite prominent as part of the photograph. Which is okay, because it's all about communicating the brand on this level. But as you can see on the other pages, like the seat map, the communication of the brand is not relevant anymore. So it's not there, it's just somewhere in the footer below. And maybe if you want to book a flight, then it's really important that the logo should be close to the confirm button. This is the only thing I want to tell about the logo. It's actually a dynamic positioning of the logo. And again, it's about the context and the user. Okay, this looks quite focused. And I will show you some bad practices to compare this with other airlines. This is just a random collection. I've collected it actually yesterday. It's some premium airlines, some low-cost airlines, some in between. And as you can see, this looks so different. There is no focus. And it's actually a little bit like, I mean, it's representing the organization. I mean, there are a lot of components, there are a lot of boxes. And it's almost like every stakeholder in the organization has its own box. So there's a sales box, there is customer care, whatever. So this is reflecting the organization culture, and this is not reflecting the user and the context. And I label these kind of designs as, this is a corporate wall. And from my opinion, we should break down these kind of corporate walls and design from a user perspective. We won some awards with Transavia, and this was in one of the jury reports. It's in Dutch, but it says something like, based on user research, even conventions in the booking flow, think about this seat map, have been released. And this is an invitation to other agencies and brands to innovate, not as an end in itself, but from a user perspective. And this perfectly summarizes our design philosophy, our design approach. I want to tell a little bit about the collaboration we had with Studio Dambar. As you know, Mirabeau is a digital agency, and Studio Dambar is a design agency. And we started a few years ago with this human-centric approach. And Transavia was really enthusiastic about it. And something interesting happened. Transavia, there was some kind of strategic change. They wanted to compete with Ryanair. They wanted to become a European airline. And they felt the need to change their logo and also the livery of the aircrafts. They considered it as too corporate and too not personal enough. So at that moment, Mirabeau decided to invite Studio Dambar to join the team. And from that moment, we started to collaborate on the rebranding of this Dutch low-cost airline. So why this projection of L'Oréal package design? This is something I remember a few years ago. We just had a kitchen review, Studio Dambar, and we presented the first design proposals for the livery and also for the logo designs, and it was quite overwhelming. So they were enthusiastic, but they were also overwhelmed, and a few days later, I had a meeting with the head of communications, and she was enthusiastic, but she had some concerns. Henk, I think the proposals are still too corporate, and they're not human-centric. So please, you should visit Studio Dambar very soon, and you should rebrief them on this project. And tell them that they should take your designs as a reference or as, actually as the source of inspiration for the new brand identity. And she gave me this package. Well, not exactly this one, to support this message. What exactly was her message? She was telling about the L'Oreal shampoo or moisturizer or something like that. And it always makes me feel so excited when I open the box, and well, it really gives me a warm feeling. And I mean, this is what is really missing, and this is what I really want. So I went to Studio Dambar with this and had a nice discussion. And as you know, we came up with very nice designs. There are a few other things that are interesting about our collaboration. First of all, it took a few weeks to get used to each other. And what was in it for Mirabeau? For us, it was highly interesting to learn from Erik de Vlaam. He was responsible for the logo. And I think there are only a few real logo designers in the Netherlands. I mean, you need a very specific skill set to design a logo, because it's the most ultimate, a summary you can make of a brand personality. So that's what we have learned from Studio Dambar. On the other hand, what was in it for Studio Dambar? That is to bring the brand to life in new dimensions, like motion, behavior, interaction, to create a richer brand experience. The essence of the presentation tonight is actually that we always should design from a user perspective. The context should always be reflected, and we should break down the corporate walls. And that is actually the meaning of design and identity from a digital perspective. And this was quite a revolution in design a few years ago, because this rebranding was initiated. It was initiated by the commercial director, by the UX director of Transavia. So it was initiated within the digital domain. Well, there's a lot of more information to tell about this project. Our successful collaboration was not only the result of the complementary skill sets, but what we shared, what Mirabeau shared with Studio Dambar, is the design exploration, to work on intuition, to create a lot of proposals, and to work things out into the finest details. And of course, what we shared is like a nerdy behavior. So I think the employees look more or less the same. And of course, most important, last but not least, we really like to bring the brand to life, to make it tangible. And I think that was the success for our collaboration. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you so much. Also for you, a short question before we move on. User experience is like the focus point of your development of the rebranding.
Yes.
But we also heard in the beginning that Roel said continuity is very important. If I look back at the slides where you had like the splash page, the page of the holiday, so to speak, and the page where you can book the flights, there's not a visual continuity because the logo is in different places.
I can tell a little bit about that. These are just screenshots of states. And of course, I mean, it's not a static experience. Here. You are clicking, you're scrolling. So it is a consistent experience, but it looks a little bit weird on the screen.
Right. Did you publish a manual as well for the company in advising them how to use them, or even giving rules how to use the material that you created?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm interested to know the background of this question.
No, because Erik, it seems like, because the screenshot you showed us, it seems like very dynamic, because it's been used on planes, it's been used on cloths as well, it's been used online as well, and it looks very free. It looks very, very, free to interpret, and it's interesting to hear that it's not.
It looks free, and there is, you can make your interpretation. We discussed algorithms earlier tonight, and I think it's in the design of the algorithm that is quite strict. So it's the design system itself is very strict. So even the interpretation an artist can make or a designer can make or is restricted.
Okay, so there's certain boundaries that you create, and within those boundaries, people are free to do what they want, but the boundaries are set.
Yes, exactly. They should be very strict, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can just create something free.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Henk.
Okay.
The final person who will present a case is Dennis Flinterman. He's a partner and managing director at Silo. And Silo is a human-centered creative agency with ideas, as they stated themselves. They're based in The Hague. And one of Silo's recent successful brand identities is the development of the corporate identity of the Boerhaven Museum. Please give a warm hand to Dennis Flinterman.
Thanks a lot. Hello. Yeah, we're based in The Hague. We're a creative agency, as we like to say. And since the 1st of October, we're also based in Amsterdam. Yeah, there goes the van. Very happy to be here. We have a team that is consisting of designers, but also developers, motion graphics, all different kinds of types. And we like to mix everything up. Museum Boerhaven. I don't know how many of you know the museum or have been at the museum. Oh, well, so it's let me tell you something shortly about the museum. It's a museum about science. It's quite small. It's in the historic center of Leiden, but it's an important museum. It's a Rijksmuseum, actually. This is what the Times had to say about it. It's one of the most important scientific and medical history collections in the world. So when we were asked to redesign their identity, we were very excited, but I was mostly excited from a personal standpoint, because this is my son, Jip, and it was his favorite museum. So how cool is that? That we're going to work for the museum, and he was also very excited about it. And I could understand why it was his favorite museum, because Jip, he's a collector. He has all kinds of stuff he's collecting. And the museum was a bit like that also. They have all these mysterious machines, drawings, stuff, sometimes scary stuff. And well, when we started the job, they were restructuring the complete museum. To give you an idea, the museum was closed when we started, so we had to go to the depot, which was a bit the same, but more of it. It was like 5 stories of, gory stuff, which is quite cool. But yeah, you have to really know, and you have to know that it was all presented in a chronological order in the museum. So you started around 1700, and you had to work your way all around to this day and age. So what they have asked us, they said, well, we have this plan for the museum. We want to restructure the museum and go in a new direction. Because science is very important to our daily lives, of course. So it's for everyone. But now it's, yeah, the museum as it was a bit too much for your average person. So yeah, they said, well, we have a couple of scientists who are connected to our museum. Maybe you know them. Ionica Smeets, she's a mathematician. And she can really talk about math in a way that you understand. Okay, that's what I can do with it. Or Robert Dijkgraaf, here he's talking about quantum physics. And personally, I don't know about you, but I don't get it. But when he talks about it, I follow him and I think, oh, this is really cool stuff. And the other guy is André Kuipers. And, well, he's a scientist, but he's an astronaut. So that's cool enough, I think. So this was the museum when we started. And here you can see we had a bit of a tour. It's an old building, lots of rooms. And they had asked Opera and Studio Louter to redesign the complete museum experience. They were starting to work on that, and they say, well, when we want to change the museum, we also have to change our brand and the story we are telling. So that's where we started, and the story should be about the impact of science on our daily lives. So, give you an impression. These are some impressions of the museum now. It wasn't there back then, but if you haven't been there, it's really cool. You should go there. But it's really changed. They changed the whole place. They have 4 rooms about specific topics. You can do stuff and learn something, and at the same time, they have this amazing collection of yeah, these crazy objects, if you're into that stuff. So, to us, a studio, if you say, okay, what is an identity, a visual identity about? It's really about how to tell the story in a moving way. Because if you say, okay, we have to tell the story, we can do it in many different ways. And we hardly ever start with designing a logo, but you have to start by the idea of, okay, how are we going to tell this story? So I'm going to show you some concepts that didn't make it. So the first one was, well, if we take these stories of science, take it really literally. Like, okay, we tell this, it's a content-driven world, the internet, and we have the content marketing. Let's take that as the main ingredient to the identity. So we have, by the way, we changed the name back to museum, from Museum Boerhaven to Rijksmuseum Boerhaven, and say, okay, let's, if we say we have this name, let me see if I can show it, and make the brand blend into the stories we have to tell about scientists, about their discoveries. About these objects, what is it and what can I do with it and why is it important? So I just go through it. It's one way, one approach to it. The other one was inspired by this guy you just saw, Robert Dijkgraaf. And we saw an interview with him, and he said something really interesting. He said, well, a scientist, he works for days or weeks or years on something and discovers nothing. And then one day when he does, it's like opening a window, stepping through it, and there's a completely new world. And I thought it was really a poetic way of saying it. And so that was the inspiration for the second concept. And from a visual standpoint, that on the image on the left, over there, it's called an anatomical theater. It was there back in the days when and people would perform a surgery, and yeah, you can watch and learn. Which is very important for the, our medical history, and we learned how things worked. So it's still in the museum, and it was also a way of bringing that into the identity. And we designed this tagline, discover the world of science. And it looked like this. So we could visualize this theater, or make some different shapes. And in the center, there would be the window opening up. You could step through it, and we could unfold this new world. Here, you see. So. Well, last concept, which was also the one that I went for, was called, we had these two ideas and we were ready for the presentation. It was like, okay, let's go there. We said, okay, maybe it's not quite there yet. Let's really step on it. And well, the team worked on it some more, and we came up with the last concept, and it was called the blank spots, which is also about the same story. Like, okay, someone is researching something, and you don't know what you're going to find. You can work on it for your whole life and don't discover anything, or you can become this great inventor of. So it's a bit like designing, actually. There are blank spots. So this was the idea, the initial idea for the identity. These are just sketches that were in the first concept presentation. And the idea is, well, if you can add that to imagery, then it could work. And this is they really like this idea. And they said, well, we don't know about how it looks, or we really actually we don't see a logo yet. And but we really like this idea of blank spots. We can relate to it. And they could also relate to this image over there. They are the lenses. And the microscope was, of course, a very important discovery by Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. He worked on one of the early microscopes. And he said, yeah, this is something we can relate to. So, but work on this a little more, because it has to be stronger. So we did. So we had 3 ideas, 1 winner, and then it starts. And the other thing is about science, and what I really like about it is experiments. And we decided, okay, we have this museum, which is very important. It's about science, it's about medicine, and it could be about the stories they wanted to tell. Could be about X-rays. It could be about space travel. It could be about open heart surgery. It could be about Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. So it could be about butterfly collections, strange objects. So they're so different, these stories. How do you combine them in one identity that can communicate all these different things you can see there? And we decided, okay, let's experiment on the image. And so we can take whatever image you would like. and we make some algorithms and make some adjustments to it so that it becomes something different but recognizable. So, for example, these lenses. But it could also be a bit more psychedelic. It could be magnetic fields. It could be about liquids or X-rays. Combining historic material and making something new out of it. And that we decided that should be the main ingredient of the visual identity. And well, it works. You can add a communication layer to it, and you can see something happening there. So, where's the logo? So that was the question, because although it's very diverse, you could say, okay, it's a dynamic identity. We still thought, okay, we need a strong icon because the museum should be recognizable throughout all these campaigns and all these. But the logo is also the smallest representation of the story you would like to tell, and the story of something combining two things. You don't know what will happen, and sometimes you discover something and you can move forward. So that became the logo. I'm just going to show it to you and then I can explain some more. So it's really simple in the basis. It's a circle and it's a rectangle, and where they come together, something can happen. And this movement is really an integral part of it. But you can use it even as a still image. It could have different shapes, but there's like one basic strong shape that is recognizable throughout the whole communication. So we could have like a really simple system that we could say, okay, you work with all kinds of different designers. They can do whatever they want to the images, but the logo, you know, it should be recognizable and it should be placed on the images. So when you combine all these elements, the complete identity unfolds, and I'm just going to show you. So that was a story about the Boerhaven case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I love the presentation of it, and it's very cinematic. It almost reminds me of the logo or the introduction film of a movie company. Was that also part of the brief to make it applicable for, like, for example, online use that can be more dynamic than in print?
Well, it was not specifically the brief, but it's really, we believe really in this approach because, like nowadays, the communication is always has a digital side. Mm-hmm. So we always take that into account in our process.
Right. And did you experience that sometimes it clashed? Could you say that maybe in movement the logo is even stronger than only in print, or is that not something that you experienced?
Yeah, it could be, but really, like I said, you always need a strong logo mark. to use in print, because you cannot say to a client, okay, we have all these kind of logos, but they have to move, or pick whatever one you like. There's like one basic image that is there, and it has to be really strong and simple. But of course, if you have the technology and possibilities to make it move, that's way cooler than to have it stand still.
Great. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thanks.
Our final speaker before we move on to the panel is an executive producer of the Design Bridge and has seen design all over the world. She's also part of a member of the Marketing Tribune design panel. Please give a warm hand to Claire Parker. Welcome.
Well, I've just realised my notes are down here very small, so I may have to wing this a little bit. But what has been fantastic to see tonight is the rapid change that's happening in our industry and how we're all perceiving what brands and identities are. And this was the text that I was given, that was the introduction for this evening, to say what they would like me to comment on in the column. And yes, things are changing, everything's moving very fast. And what's really striking, I hope you all have noticed from the speakers tonight, from Erik and Henk and Roel and Dennis, is that none of them spoke about a manual, none of them spoke about lines and grids, none of them spoke about too big, too small, not there, over here. None of them had those discussions. They were all talking about brands in a very personal way. They understood the motivations of the brands to go out in the world. And so guidelines have to be there to some extent, because you need to have rules, but they're rules that they're not inspiration. Inspiration comes from really understanding the story that is behind a brand. And that's where all the struggle is in filling the blank piece of paper when we get asked to do something. It's the story that lies behind it. It's not just that logo, it's everything that exists to make it be there. So culture is thriving with purpose, variety, and creativity. And this is why the world of brand design has to move on, because we're in this world. And if we don't move with it, then we get left behind. If we just stick with those same little logos because a client says they want something here and give them a manual that goes into a drawer, then we're just not going to compete with anything else. There's some great piece of information from research of meaningful brands that 74% of brands could disappear and we wouldn't care. 75% of brands expect more. 75% of people expect more from their brands. And all my type is defaulted. So in this world of sensorial overload, where everyone is bombarded by new things all the time, new messages, brands need to know their truth and their purpose. And they need to have creative originality if they are going to thrive. And I think we've seen a lot of that tonight. Brands will survive that have bold ideas and brave design that emotionally connects with people. We heard so much about that in the presentations, about designing for your audience. What are they looking for? What is it that they need? So I'm not going to show you any brands because it's Thursday evening and I'm the last speaker and you probably all want to get to the bar. So I thought, what can I do that might be a little bit more fun? So I know I'm going to talk to you about emotional connections and say that everything that's been talked about tonight is about preparing your brands to go out into the world, because it's got to face the world. It has to do things. It has to engage. It's got to be part of things. And these children are all emotionally engaging. And don't worry, they're not seeing anything horrific. Apparently, it was a puppet show in Paris. But look at the different faces. Look at how horrified some of them look. Look at how one of them just wants to dive in there and do something. One of them just does not want to hear any more information. They're all seeing the same thing. And what struck me about this image, well, one, also Magnum and Cartier-Bresson and all of those photographers, great source if you're putting a presentation together and you don't have any other images to draw on. But what struck me is that our brands that we're creating, we give them everything they need to have to cope with the world that they're in. So these children are coping or not coping based on their parents. And it ain't easy, because sometimes the brands go out into the world and they don't cope very well at all. And we see that happening all the time. So why does that happen? Well, it happens because maybe there was too much of a rule book, and maybe we didn't listen to what the audience needed, and maybe we didn't actually help the marketeers who are going to use it or understand where it was going to appear. Maybe we were too strict on the rules and we should have let go of the apron strings a little bit. Because if you're too strict with the rules, then people aren't going to be inventive. People aren't going to try new things. You need to be ready for the world, so you really have to let go. You need to put the kid out into the world. And it's an analogy that's been used before, that brands are like people. Just go with it. You know, maybe brands are like kids, and we as parents have a responsibility to make sure that we give them all of the things that we need to be and make their own decisions and go out into the world and make their own friends and make their own mistakes and develop and grow and become the things that they should be. But maybe we're at this pace in time. If you look at the 3-sibling rule, if we go with this story, the 3-sibling rule is the rules are made for the first child, they're broken by the second child, and the third child just gets away with it completely, which is my little brother. But to get it really clear, and this is from a famous British poet, they can fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to do it, but they do. They fill you with their faults they had and some extra just for you. So if we get it wrong, then it's not going to be able to cope in the world out there. It won't be ready for things. So how do we make sure that we get it right? How do we make sure that the brand does not succumb to peer pressure, like all of those airline pages we saw up there that weren't Transavia, that try and get everything on there and they just look like everybody else and they're just not being themselves? We need to find the truth that sits at the heart of a brand, because they all have it, whether they exist already as a brand or whether we're starting them from scratch. There's something there that we should be using to bring our ideas to life. We need to make sure our brands are able to think for themselves and not copy those around them, because otherwise, why are you making a brand? You're just making another product. You cannot control every single moment of a child's life, but you certainly can't control it of a brand. But if its core values are right, then it will cope and thrive in the world out there. And I think that's what we've seen of all the cases that have been shown tonight, that the identity for Eindhoven now is being embraced and it's living and it's coming to life in a world. It's kind of coming into its teenage years and experiencing all kinds of new things because the thought was already in there when it was launched into the world. And if we judged it just over the logo rather than thinking of the whole identity, then we make a mistake. So brands should be free to experiment and make new choices and see how it fits, and if it doesn't, and then move on, because we're at a time when you can do that. Things aren't just rigid and set, so have a little bit of fun with it. And most of all, for all of you out there who are involved in the world of branding, it should be fun, it should be engaging, and you should really know what that truth is when you set out and be rigorous in that first stage of understanding a brief. So know your truth, know the truth of your brand that you work on, and dare to do great things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. And I have to admit, I am the youngest child, so I really applied on my family as well. We're youngest of 3. Giving up control, I think that's the most hardest thing to do, isn't it? In order to just see what happens.
Particularly when
Oh, you need a microphone.
Yeah, particularly when I imagine that most of the other speakers tonight are quite OCD about things as well. and letting go of control is, but then if you know you've done all the right things and you've given the brand the identity that it should have and everybody gets it intuitively, then you should let it go. You should get it, and it could come back in better ways than you ever expected as well. That's where the rigor needs to be.
We saw an experiment with that by how the logo of Eindhoven, the city of Eindhoven, has been used and has been taken to other levels instead of tattooing this as well. If I understood, Design Bridge is also connected to packaging, right?
We're a brand design agency, and logos sit on packs, they sit on
Exactly.
corporate identities that are all around us.
But what I wonder is that because we're talking about the influence of you know, the digital and technological developments, packaging is quite static. It doesn't, you know, it's there. Or am I mistaken? Are there technological developments that affect packaging as well?
Well, yeah, how often do you actually go into a supermarket now to purchase things? Do you do it online first? Do you not want to? It's more about the things that arrive that I can't think of the last time that I haven't bought something like clothing-wise that arrives through your letterbox, and then it's about that moment of truth in a different space.
Right.
So I think the role of packaging is changing, and in that you can be much more versatile. You don't need to have the same pack all the time,
Right.
because it can evolve. You don't have to shout out at shelf, and I think that's what's going to be very interesting moving forward.
Great, thank you. You're going to be part of the panel, so I would like to ask you to take a seat. And I would like to invite our other panelists as well. So please welcome Henk, there you go, Henk Haaima. Erik de Haas. Roel Stavorinus. And who did I forget? Dennis Flinterman, of course, last but not least. Welcome. Yeah, it's quite strange because you have to be quite close to the table in order to be close to the microphone, or else we can't hear you, and especially the online stream won't hear you. Welcome back, and thank you so much for your presentations. I would like to pose the first question. Because of technology, things are changing rapidly as well. You showed us the design of the NS logo, which is quite strong, has been very consistent up until now. Is it possible nowadays, in order to design a logo that strong as well? And how can, you know, old design be compared to new design? Because the situation that the NS logo was designed in, you know, budget-wise, but also application-wise, has changed. So how do you see the difference between old designing and so-called new designing?
You've got very difficult questions tonight.
I know.
I think that's still possible, but I'm not sure whether that's the real question to answer. I think what struck me in Henk's presentation is that it's all about the user and interaction. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to start thinking from how do I make that connection with stakeholders, users, my public, my audience, mm-hmm. And what's necessary for that. And what I think you refer to the NS. I think NS is changing their identity at the moment. Elements of their basic identity design, logo, colors, etc. And I don't think for the better, and that's because they don't think starting with the user, mm-hmm. but they think aesthetics. Mm-hmm. So if you look at your NS app on your phone, then they made a change, and that's just an aesthetic one that doesn't really mean a thing or help you in anything.
For the people who don't know, there has been a swish added, a two-tone swish added on the logo of the app.
And for
peer pressure.
Sorry?
Pardon?
Peer pressure.
Peer pressure, like we saw in your presentation as well.
You see the beautiful yellow trains are replaced now, and the sprinters are white with a little bit of yellow. Mm-hmm. And so you lack that recognition. I think that's a bad idea because there's not really a reason behind it. Right. This has got something to do with the user.
Right. Henk, then I want to go to you. I want to, you know, be quite provocative, and I would say, you know, the trade of designing logos and the trade of designing brand identity, like graphic designers did that in the past, it can never be changed if you think from the user experience perspective. What would you say to that?
I don't really understand your question. Difficult questions, yeah.
Well, that's an answer as well. No, because if you start out like the NS did with the brand, with the very logo, that started with the company. What are the values of the company, and what is represented in the logo. Whereas if you start with user experience, it's not exactly the story. You could argue. It's not exactly the story of the company. It's more about the experience that the user has in order to find or use the brand.
Okay, it's still a difficult question, but I'm quite skeptic when it comes to to reflect the user, in the sense if you start to collaborate with users, if you start to co-create with users, I think that is not a very good idea. But still, if you start to design something like an identity or a website or whatever, it is a good idea to make it dynamic. And with dynamic I mean that you should not take the business as a reference, but the consumers, the users. But not too literal. I mean, I'm not a big fan of user testing, because that is really like a short-term testing. You cannot take that as a reference. But what I like is to collaborate with anthropologists and psychologists. We have them in our company, because they have these theoretical frameworks and they know a lot about consumers and how they behave. And I think it's a very good idea to work on that holistic level.
Erik.
Yes.
Your reaction to that?
Oh. I was expecting a really difficult question. Good luck.
I can't keep on firing them all. I'll let you have the...
Can you repeat that? No.
With the whole holistic approach, it's about the holistic approach, and you're the designer, so to speak.
I think it also depends what the intention is. I mean, in the case of Transavia, the intention is basically to sell tickets. So that's a totally different objective than, for instance, a logo for a city.
What is the objective to create for the city to have a logo?
I think it has a double function. In a way, it's a reference for people who live there. That it's sort of a sign of trust if you get a message. On the other hand, in this case, it's also a way to specifically in this case, it's a way to engage people from abroad. So I don't know if it's not done only by a logo, but it's a whole marketing strategy. But it's again a reference
that can
point.
be successful, as we saw here with the I Amsterdam campaign.
Yeah, we were thinking of buying it.
The I Amsterdam to put it in
placing
Eindhoven.
it in Eindhoven. Yeah.
Quite interesting. Then Eindhoven will be like the backyard of Amsterdam.
Tap off some tourists.
How do you see yourself? How do you see yourself developing campaigns or developing identities in future? Is like user experience so much more important? Is like the interaction design as well so much more important than it used to be? I think be a little bit closer. I think.
Well, it is important, but I think it has always been important, because we were talking about NS, and I think it's really interesting about that identity is when it was created, it was actually very user-centered. So it was tested in the field by Gert, and there's a cool documentary about him going into the field and photographing and see if you can see it on the trains from a distance. Before the trains were yellow, they were all different kinds of colors because of I think it was about the China of the chairman's, one of the chairman's wife. They really liked the colors. So it was not at all recognizable.
No, but that's a very much a good example. It wasn't used for a whole panel in order to see what colors were more favored by this group of people. It was a very individual choice that resulted in something very good.
It's actually not true,
isn't it?
No. That's actually quite amazing. That if you look 50 years back and how they did the process, even with focus groups and surveys, and they actually involved train drivers in the process and asked them for their reactions. So it was actually quite a professional process that we don't see much anymore.
Right. Should that return?
No, I'm not sure if it's applicable for every situation, but I was quite struck by the professionalism of that time.
Right. I would like to open it up to the audience. Are there any questions that you want to know? Are there any questions you want to ask and things you want to know in regard to the future of design, or in regard to the presentations that you saw, or the column that was being presented by Claire? Anybody? Yeah, I'll come to you. There you go. Just go ahead.
I have a question about Eindhoven identity, because you gave it to everybody, and you just said also one of the purposes of a logo is authority. that you know who the sender is of a message. So what happens in Eindhoven if everybody's creating stuff with that logo on it? What happens if you get something that you really should know, for instance, your municipal taxes, or you get an official letter from the city? How do you know it's from the city and not from anybody else who's using the identity?
How do you know it's genuine? You already explained a little bit about that, right?
Yes. So actually, that's a big problem. A lot of people. no. Well, the part that was delivered to the gemeente, it did have some form of guidelines. So some elements are exclusively used by the gemeente. For instance, the color, but then again, everybody can make that color. But also a way of typesetting and fonts, which are not available to everybody. But then again, if you want to sort of do bad, you can. And I think that's also possible with the NS logo, for instance.
Are there any sanctions if I would, produce a letter using the red of the local government in my heading, in my logo? Are there any consequences or not?
Not sure, actually.
You have to move to Amsterdam.
Actually, Peter Kenty told me, he's the director of, what's it called? Eindhoven 365. He told me that you can do everything, but the one color red is, especially for the city council, you can't use that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you know which color it is, you can. But so it's.
No, but I think they're quite strict in sort of making sure that no one else uses that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hello. Sorry to push more into Eindhoven now, but for me it seems like, because Amsterdam has like the 3 X's, so Eindhoven seems quite similar now with the idea behind it. Was this kind of adaptation, or was it more?
No, it's a total copy.
The question is, did you steal it?
Because it's three things of stuff, or what do you mean?
Because it's I'll come to you.
Like a symbol of 3.
Yeah.
And because we know now kind of the story behind the wave sign, I would say, that the movement and everything is in the city. But how do people who don't have the background see this?
You mean see the difference between Eindhoven and Amsterdam?
Yeah. So maybe they're like,
I don't know.
Like from the purpose, like, maybe Groningen has also something which is like 3 the same. Or
I think it's very common in city logos, actually. But I don't actually. It's funny because some people refer to this issue, but I don't actually see it as an issue, because it's only sort of the repetition that's there, maybe. But it's not a cross or something. So I don't actually see that as being too close to the identity of Amsterdam, for instance. And besides that, the whole idea about the identity is totally different.
Did you take other city logos in account? Did you see, did you, in your process, did you use the 3 X's from Amsterdam, or like the logo that's red and white from Utrecht? Did you consider that in your process?
No, but we did look at different cities, of course. And one of the cities which was a huge inspiration was Antwerp. Not because of the shape, but because of they executed this strategy of having one image, one logo for all departments in the government.
Yeah, for the people,
but also for the marketing.
It's quite this A, right? That's been used everywhere. Yeah,
it's an A with little stripes around it. But you see it also being adapted, like for instance at frituures. When they turn around the A and then it's a frietzakje. So, for instance, there was a sort of source of inspiration because they did it really well.
Yeah, one symbol for the whole city.
Yes.
Right. Any other questions? Things that people would like to know? Burning issues. Yeah. It's mainly from that side of the room. I don't know why. Go right ahead.
It's more about color choices. I wonder how did they choose the green of Transavia, for example?
How did you choose the green for Transavia?
It was actually the color palette in the past was dark blue and green, and yeah, we really wanted to build on the heritage of this airline. But we've made the green. It was a really cool green, so we've added a little bit of yellow to make it feel more warm.
And did you test it somewhere, or was it just done and accepted by the company?
No, we tested it, and we had to test it, and it was quite remarkable that the color palette in France, there was some kind of connotation with the metro. I don't remember the city. I think it was in Nice or Marseille. Yeah. But there was another connotation of this color of green that we were actually quite surprised about this.
And was that reason to change it, or did you just...
Yeah, that was a reason to change it, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. I would like to pose a statement, and I would like you all to react to it, because it's about graphic design, of course, and could you state that traditional graphic designers who mainly focus on graphic design only and are not being involved in user experience or digital strategies in order to incorporate a brand identity, those so-called traditional designers can survive in the future? You have to, if you have to develop, you have to involve yourself in user experience digital applications. What's your reaction to that?
I think if you... Does it work? I think if you work independently, you have to be very good, and then you survive. Or you have to be good and to be and willing and being able to collaborate and really bring something to the team. I think like the collaboration with Dunbar and Mirabeau, they're totally different. How do you say that? Background, vision, etc. But if it connects really well and it's complementary, then it works really well. Yeah. But you must be willing to collaborate.
Collaborate. Independently, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, if you're very good, then there's no problem.
Right. Okay. Anybody else in the panel?
Well, I don't see them as separate things, really. And the more the world evolves, the more easy it will be for everybody to just do anything they want in the digital realm. And kids are already growing up, and that's all that they've ever known as well. The thing that's important is making sure the truth of the brand is there and it's brought out into the world in the way it could be. And so collaborate with anybody to make sure that that happens in the right way. But if you don't start with something great, then you're not going to end up with something great, no matter how much movement or life you put into it.
Right.
I think every graphic designer has always been informed, even when they were using a pencil and a piece of paper, by the world that was around them. It's just that the world has changed, but the quality of a beautiful idea just captured as a tiny little sketch still is the start point for most of the things that exist. It's just then how you choose to bring them to life that changes and could be different again tomorrow.
Right. You talk about the truth of the brand. What do you mean by that? What is the truth of a brand?
Well, Transavia is obviously about getting people to where they needed to be in a happy place. Happy because it was free, and we're cheaper, free from hassle. You know, so the understanding, well, what does that mean for us? It's not just about booking. It's not just about kind of getting the price. In understanding that means that you made all the choices that you did on the whole journey. So the user experience part of it, or using the insights from consumers, isn't creating your brand. Your brand still has to be a thing. You're responding to the need, and the way that you behave is a result. And that's the thing that I think sometimes we get wrong, and why brands change when they shouldn't, and they just behave like the trend of something that's happening because they don't know themselves well enough, or the people responsible for looking after it aren't doing the right things for it. And I think that's where you get the horrible disasters.
Thank you. How do you two see that future of designing? In your case?
I think it's about the balance of the outside-in part of it. Like, what do you expect from a brand or a product, or how does it behave? And the personality, which is really inside out. So it's really about how does a brand approach the world. And sometimes the logo is not important at all.
Sometimes the logo, because that's quite a statement to make. Sometimes the logo is not important.
Yeah, for example, I use Spotify, and it has a logo. It looks like a Wi-Fi icon. It doesn't matter because it works really well, and it knows my preferences. And
but it's recognizable. It's very recognizable.
Yeah, but if they would change the color, it would still work. They changed a while ago. They changed the color green, and then there's one moment that everyone is complaining, like, "Oh, it's so horrible! Get it out of my eyes!" And then next day we still use it because it works. And they work on the interaction, my preferences, and it knows it's a product I use. And, the logo is, of course, there, but it's not the most important thing of that brand, I think.
So if the product is really effective, the logo doesn't matter?
I think the logo is a representation of a brand. So when I see the logo, and a good logo shouldn't change because I can recognize the brand.
Right.
But if I will use the product, it should be a really good product. So it goes hand in hand. It's the same thing to me, actually.
And you could argue that Spotify is quite a monopolist at the moment in the streaming. So there's no competition to either be very recognizable as a logo yet.
I don't know. There are other services I can use, but I won't switch because this product, the way I already use this product.
Right.
So, but I think, so it's a balance about you can test everything and try an A/B test, but it won't make a great brand.
Right.
So it's also about the designer coming up with this great idea, translating your personality.
Right.
So that, to me, that's the balance.
And your reaction to the future?
I agree. No.
Thank you so much. That's it.
No, I think it's true. I think I always find it sort of a little bit awkward to think about like the relevance of a brand and that sort of stuff, because it's you have different perspectives on it. You have sort of the user experience, but also the designer experience. You have like also maybe the intuition that goes into it. There's so many different levels on which this can be like relevant.
Right. Let's not talk about the relevance of brands. Let's talk about the relevance of design or designers. That's getting increasingly less and less important if you use your theory.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I know, but I want him to answer.
Could be, I think.
Could be.
Yeah,
really?
there could be a scenario there. Yeah, but
I'm surprised by your reaction. Why do you think that it really could be a scenario?
I think because it's a normal evolution where I don't know, software gets better. I mean, look around on the internet. How many people use automated templates, for instance?
Right.
So there is sort of a truth there, I think.
Okay.
Maybe it's not the most convenient one, but I think, yeah, why not?
All right.
It's not my ambition, but...
Oh, your hope, hopefully. We have to close the program off almost, because I would like to give the opportunity to ask some final questions in regard to what has been said. And there's somebody there. Go right ahead.
Hi. I want to say that I lived in Eindhoven for the past 2 years, and although I understand where the city is going to, I also have experience in Eindhoven at 6 p.m. in which everything is closed. There's not a big barrier to food. People do not live in a global city. And I think that's also the truth. Same as I have flight with Transavia and I experience delays on the airport, being tired. And I think that's also the truth. So I don't fully understand this constant sort of positivism of brands.
Your logos are lies!
No, I fully understand it, but I'm asking, looking towards the future. We live in a very complicated and troubled world, and maybe brands should start also reflecting on that.
Well, it's interesting because Klaas said you have to be exploring the truth and telling the truth of the brand. And the brand is also that things are not going well. The brand is also that Eindhoven still in part can be this ugly or boring city. So is your advice to the designers that they should include that in their story or in the brand as well?
It's not, yeah, I think so. It's just because when I see this red shiny logo at 6 p.m. and there's nothing to do, it even bothers me. Although I really understand the branding and I understand it's necessary, when you speak about this truth, I think there are a lot of truths that you're not taking into the consideration, no? Like a struggle that scientist has to face nowadays to pay a rent in the end of the month with his, so I wonder why brands, I understand why they do not incorporate it, because it's not something
it's interesting, and I have to think straight away about the Kessels Kramer campaign about the Hans Brinker Hotel, which really emphasized everything bad about the hotel, and it was hugely successful. So could you say that we would go into branding 2.0, where the reality of the brand has been really told, not only the good things, but also the bad things, also the delays of Transavia, also the boring side of Eindhoven. What do you think about that?
I think we should change our system. We are part of a neoliberal system. It's all about capitalism. And branding is about changing the perception. Actually, it's like makeup. So I actually agree with you.
But you agree.
So,
how would you apply that to Transavia?
It's a brand is like makeup. There's something. Think about brands as Uber and Airbnb. Do we like those brands?
Do we? Yeah.
But there's also brands that are like the World Health Organization, and there's also brands like the World Wildlife Fund. There's lots of brands out in the world that have a face, and they might have a good face or a bad face. The point is that you know who you go to speak to about it, because you understand who's brought that thing to the world. And in talking about the world is changing and everything is out there, people have a voice. That's why brands have to be able to adapt and manage to it, because their brand will be used by other people and picked up by other people and talked about and shared and passed on. And that's a fantastic thing. And the brands that don't do something about that will be the 74% that we don't care if they disappear. The ones who actually take action around it and do respond and do it in a way that's true to them and not just following a cultural trend or jumping on a bandwagon of green, then that's when you'll really kind of feel something about it. And that's then when a brand is doing something really from its heart. But I hear your frustration about Eindhoven. Maybe you should take the logo and do something yourself about open all hours.
The funny thing is that somebody made this T-shirt and it says "cozy like a stone, Eindhoven." So I think the options to be honest are there for sure.
Roel would like to react as well.
I think what Erik says is true. You have to live the brand. You have to live your promise.
Yeah.
So I think Coolblue is a very good example. If you have experience with Coolblue and how they deliver something, and for instance PostNL, and the promises might be quite similar in a functional way. We deliver this package to you, but the proof of the pudding is when something happens which is not predicted, something goes wrong. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Yeah. Coolblue says our promise is we promise client satisfaction. Right. And so every touch point in their whole client experience is based upon that. Right. And it's not a problem to make a mistake, it's the way you solve it. Yeah, right. And PostNL does that totally different. Yeah. So she's entirely right also about Eindhoven. You have to be fair. No, she's absolutely fair about Eindhoven, but I think that you have to lift that attitude from Eindhoven also. Right.
We are streaming live, so if people are there from Eindhoven, we're so sorry about this.
I will fix it. No, but I think it's also a direction. I mean, when I came to Eindhoven in 2005. I know the local government said, "Oh, we're going to be design capital of the world," and I was like, "Yeah." And 10 years later,
it sort of happened.
So they lived up to the promise.
Yeah, so you have to. So it can also be sort of a goal.
Yeah, it's an ambition that you want to bring out to the world, and then you can achieve it, hopefully.
Yeah.
But what I also think is interesting about the provocation is take your audience seriously. Besides the Kesselskramer campaign for Hans Brink Hotel, I also have to think about the how do you say that, ladies' hygienic products commercials, where every woman who's got her period has to do somersaults, has to ride on horses. You know, it's an image that is not connected to reality. And sometimes we need campaigns to be connected to reality. And sometimes we need to see the ugly truth in campaigns as well, which I think is very, very interesting as a thought, at least. Time's up. So I would like to close off. Thank you so much for being in on panel.
Thank you.
You're going to go and sort out Eindhoven.
Sorry?
You need to go sort out Eindhoven.
And I would like to thank you as well for attending. Again, this was a logo by logo program made by the Wim Krauwel Institute. And for this special edition, I would like to thank Erik. And I'd like to thank Roel for Dutch Design Daily as well, in order to create this amazing evening. Thank you for your attention. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.